This short video is to summarize and wrap up the core workshop looking at the Mendel cores in Pecos County. So if we go back to this map and core cross section here, we looked at those 5 cores, 2 at the bottom in siliciclastic interval, the 36-4, and the basal part of the Pecos D phi, and then 3 real core in carbonate interval, the upper part of the Pecos D phi, the Mendel 34-1, the Mendel 26-2 with this really blocky gamma ray, and then some just a little bit of core in the 1-22. So now let's try to put those core with regard to the cross section. So here on this slide we take that core cross section and we expand it up a little bit, and then we took the core descriptions and relatively scale them relative to each other, but not to the well log, otherwise we wouldn't see anything. So all the core cross sections are the same scale, but they're about double or triple the vertical scale of the well log. So if you look at the siliciclastic interval, that first core we looked at was really muddy, with just some thin sand unit in there. And then the basal part of the Pecos D phi was much more sandy dominated with two sandy unit that probably correspond to those 2 gamma ray. So we can clearly see that in terms of thickness they're not the same, but if you take the overall package as a whole all the way down to that other green line, and this is about the same thickness, so we have probably an axis or some deposition, either a fan axis or a channel axis on the Pecos D phi, and then even if we move to the next core, the gamma ray becomes even more blocky. So as we move toward the northwest along that cross section, seems like the gamma ray character tells us we go from fringe to off axis to maybe axis, and then the last core is a very ratty gamma ray there, maybe again off the axis there. In the carbonate part, it's pretty much a similar story. In the Pecos D phi, we got those muddy, silty carbonates, floatstone, and then some debris flow, and then back to siliciclastic mudstone. So that would be that lower gamma ray in the Pecos D phi. When we move to the core to the west of that, so moving left on the slide, again pretty ratty gamma ray. We can see the debris flows and some more muddy flow, and then we move to that 36-2 core, which is very thick, also have that really clean blocky gamma ray. There's a stack of carbonate grainstone, and then the last one, the 1-22, which we only had a little box, and we saw there was debris flow at the base and crinoids fusy turbidite at the top. So again, the same story here. Maybe we're moving the fringe laterally into something more carbonate rich to the axis of some deposit, either channels or fan, and then back to something a little bit more muddy, but still with some high concentration turbidite, at least in the little window we have. So if we do isopack map, let's see what those body look like in map view and in their shape. So this is an isopack map of the lower siliciclastic ridge unit. The yellow dot on the map, the core interval. The blue section go through the core, and it's flattened on the Wolfcamp A. If we look at that isopack map, we see some asymmetry in the thickness that are oriented northwest southeast or northeast southwest. There's also a thick that is at the bottom right corner of the section. So based on that shape, for the control we have, you can make several hypotheses that needs to be tested with it seismic or more mapping. But it seems like it's difficult. Maybe to interpret a fan there, maybe like Ian did in his thesis, this is more indicative of a channelized system, and you can propose several sources. Since that the cyclastic interval is thickening up north, so maybe this is fed by a northern source coming off the central basin platform, and then we have that little promontory maybe coming in the bottom right corner of the map. This is maybe coming from the Stockton High and the Marathon thrust belt, and all those things may accumulate into the basinal area. So here's a similar isopac map and cross-section flattened on the Wolfcamp for the carbonate interval. This image is a bit more difficult to interpret in my opinion. What we have is some pretty rapid thickness variation, and if you look along that cross-section on the right, this is pretty dramatic. So either I'm picking the top of the carbonate wrong, which could be, or we have some pretty dramatic change of thickness. Nonetheless, there is a pretty strong indication that there is a northwest southeast ridge here, and then a big thick next to that. This is a thickness pattern. Again, this may be prone to my picking mistake, but it is a bit hard to interpret that as a fan deposit on the basin. This off-axis, on-axis, and fringe that I was talking about previously, it seems we might either looking at some sinus channels or channelized deposit, or like we've seen in the outcrop in the Leonardian, in the Diablo, and it has been documented by Jason Clayton too in the Happy Field. This is a fan that has been later eroded by subsequent flow, eroding into the fan and creating some pretty heavily compartmentalization, I can't say that, and a complex topography of the fan. So I would say maybe question is still up in the air. No definitive answer on what is the depositional environment we're looking at. If I had to take a decision right now, I might go for maybe a channelized deposit, but eroded fan is an equally valid interpretation, for which we actually do have outcrop and seismic to show that. So now if we compare that to that regional map, just to try to make some comments or hypotheses on the provenance of those carbonate high concentration turbidite. The location of that study area is really at that corner of the basin where we have the Sheffield channels coming east-west. That would be that middle yellow arrow. We can be sourced from the central basin platform. That would be that northeast southwest arrow on the top. We can equally be sourced from the uplift, the Marathon uplift, and through and around the Stockton High. If you've been with me on the field trip in the Glass Mountain and on Leonard Mountain, we have those very impressive stack of fusilinic crinoid turbidite in the Wolfcamp B that we walk through with that beautiful channels, and that could be the up-dip equivalent of those of those fan. Maybe not this fan, but a fan like this. So I want to leave you in this COVID time with an outcrop photo. Those core was a great example of maybe a deep water channelized or a fan system. But we're lucky enough to see the equivalent on Leonard Mountain. We have the Wolfcamp B interval really well exposed, and you can see that on this outcrop photograph. And the the green interval here at the base of Leonard, those very extensive cliff, they're actually made of stack of amalgamated crinoid fusulinate turbidite, just very similar to what we see on the core, except here we are on the slope of the southern platform created by the maritime thrust belt. And if we look at that outcrop view, this slope is channelized with some pretty thick accumulation of grainstone. So in my mind, this is the up-dip part of the system, similar to a down-dip part where on the basin floor where those core are located. So with that, we're going to wrap up this core workshop. I'm going to be available for question, and if you're watching this online and you have question, feel free to send me or Buddy a question by emails, or we can set up a Zoom or team meeting. Or communication is pretty easy these days. Thanks a lot for following that up, and let's look at more rocks.